The OA Preamble. Overeaters Anonymous is a fellowship of individuals who, through shared experience, strength, and hope, are recovering from compulsive overeating. We welcome everyone who wants to stop eating compulsively. There are no dues or fees for members. We are self-supporting through our own contributions, neither soliciting nor accepting outside donations. OA is not affiliated with any public or private organisation, political movement, ideology, or religious doctrine, and we take no position on outside issues. Our primary purpose is to abstain from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviours and to carry the message of recovery through the 12 steps of OA to those who still suffer. So how this meeting works. At this meeting, we follow a rotating format. On the second week of the month, usually, today is an extra special week, got it on the third week, we've got a recovered OA speaker who will be speaking on the topic of their choosing for up to 30 minutes. This will then be followed up by a Q&A segment for the remainder of the meeting where all members are welcome to ask questions of the speaker. So as you've just heard, this meeting is being recorded by audio only. You'll see the recording sign at the top of your screen. The Q&A section of this meeting will also be recorded. So if you wish to ask a question of the speaker, due to UK data protection rules, we ask you to do this via the chat function to our host carer, who will ask them on your behalf. But please do not do this before the Q&A segment opens. So just a reminder of our 7th tradition, although we meet electronically, we do have Zoom meeting costs to pay. And we also send contributions to our virtual intergroup. If you'd like to make a contribution to this meeting and to please you do so via the bank details, the PayPal link, which will be entered into the chat. And you come as we ask that you wait until you're sure you want to be here. So we're so honoured today to have Renee joining us, who will be speaking for the next 30 minutes. So Renee, it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad to be here. Renee, compulsive overeater. Thank you for asking me to speak today. I'm very honored. The theme, I guess, today I want to speak about, I'm just going to tell my story. I haven't told it in a while, so I feel like I would like to share it. First and foremost, I am a person with a disability, and that has always made my life a little bit harder. But I've been abstinent for over 2 years, like 27 months. And I feel like I've been a compulsive overeater my entire life. I turned to food for comfort most of my life, started when I was a child. I was product of divorce. My parents divorced when I was 4. And my brother and I stood in a living room. He's 4 years older than me. I was 4 at the time. My brother and I had to stand in the living room with my mom on one side and my dad on the other, and they told us to choose. And my brother picked my mom, and so I picked my brother. So by default, I went with my mom. So I grew up living with my mom and my stepdad. At some point, my brother went to live with my dad. My stepdad was kind of a nightmare. And he got to go and I didn't. I had to stay and I was alone. I had step siblings, but they did not live with us. Only on the weekends they came to visit. 2 are much older than me, 2 are around my age. So I was, kind of friendly with them weekends and holidays and things. But for the most part, I grew up like an only child. Very close to my dad and my brother. I could not live with my father because the way his work, he traveled a lot. He lived hours away because of work multiple times, on and off. He's a traveling pipe fitter. So it just wasn't good for a young girl to be in that situation where my brother survived more. So I was with my mom and my stepdad, and my mother was emotionally and very oftentimes physically abusive. She was abusive with me by way of neglect, by way of screaming, yelling, hitting. If I made a simple mistake or I upset her, she would just humiliate me in front of whoever. There was no filter at all. And it was really hard. My stepfather was very cruel to me. Mostly I was punished because I wasn't his children. and I lived there, and they did not. So the things that he said to me, well, he said he was very cruel to me if he wasn't ignoring me. And I honestly don't know what was worse, to be ignored or to be called names and yelled at. And they're both pretty bad. But I grew up in a home just feeling very much alone, very unloved, and a burden. Being a disabled person, I could walk when I was a kid. I could walk up until like my freshman year of high school, which that would be like 14 years old. So I was in a wheelchair after that. And it was just hard. I already felt like a burden because of the disability. I was not, my mom and my stepdad did not keep it a secret how inconvenient it was for them, how inconvenient I was for them. But when I was really young, like third grade, so that's like 7 or 8, I was really thin. And in fact, I didn't even gain any weight for 2 years. And my doctor was a little bit worried. I remember this. And I had some next door neighbors that lived next door, sweet little family, two girls right around my age, and a mom and a dad. And I spent a lot of time at their house. I didn't really know what it was like to sit at a dinner table with the family, but I learned how to do that then, because my home was differently. It was either just me and my mom and my stepdad, and a lot of times I was made to eat upstairs by myself, or they were gone, they were bowling, and a babysitter was there. So there just was no family dinners really, except when his children were there. So I was alone a lot. And but my next door neighbors were a very big like haven for me. And I would play with them, I would do things with their family. It was just a really like a wholesome environment. I just remember feeling safe and comfortable. And the worst thing happened, they moved. They moved to a whole different state, and I was alone again. And that is when food started to become my comfort. I can remember being just so little, and my babysitter was on my street, but I would sneak home and I would just devour the snacks, and I would get in so much trouble. But even though I get in trouble and I get hit with the belt, I didn't care. I just did it anyways, because in that moment, I remember feeling just this overwhelming sense of peace and comfort. And I didn't feel alone it was like a euphoric feeling when I was eating these things. And I never let go of that feeling. So I started gaining weight. I was no longer active outside playing. I didn't have any other kids on my street or really nearby, even in my neighborhood, really, that were my age or that I knew anyway. So I became pretty much, sedentary, staying in the house a lot. And eating was my best friend. I ate because I was bored. I ate because I was lonely, which was a lot. Food was a constant companion. It didn't leave me. It was always there. It wasn't going to move away states. I didn't have to visit it on the weekends. It was there for me all the time. And when I needed it. And it didn't make me feel bad about myself until much later, of course. But the weight started to gain, started to pack on pretty quickly. My mom would always make comments about my weight. She would make comments like, "Oh my gosh, you're just so fat. Like, you need to stop eating," or just like little off, just kind of rude comments, and yet never tell me what to do about it, or never help me to figure out what should I do. Like, I'm like 8, 9 years old. I didn't realize food was making me gain weight, but yet she was constantly complaining about it. When I got a little bit older, like 10, 11, I realized, the food is causing the weight. But I didn't know how to eat better. I had no idea how to lose weight. But my mom would always complain about having to take me to school clothes shopping, which was a nightmare. I hated it. all my friends were so excited about school clothes shopping. I dreaded it every year because it was just um um one big like fashion show of embarrassment. My mom would constantly be making comments and, well, only if you could shop in this section or that section. I had to shop in the Pretty Plus section of Sears and Roebuck. So that wasn't fun. It really wasn't. And I heard a constant complaint about my weight, yet offer me no way to control it really was really stressful. And I remember being so young and being so sad and felt so alone, even more so because I thought my mom didn't like me because of the way that I looked. I was already burdened to them because of my disability. I couldn't walk up or walk as fast as them. And I couldn't play soccer like the whole family did. And so, and then this. So it was just kind of double hard. In my late teens, like, or no, not late teens, like I'm like 13, 14, 15, I started thinning out a little bit. My baby fat started turning into curly curves. I was still chubby, but it was kind of in the right place at the time. And then my stepfather, who always hated me and ignored me, molested me. And that was really confusing. I told no one until 2020. I told my best friend, and then I told my husband. And I could barely speak the words. I choose to talk about it more often in meetings now because the more I say it, the more I talk about it, the less power it gives him, which he's no longer on this earth anymore. But it still sometimes has control over me, even though he's gone. So the more I talk about it, the less power it has over me. So I'm not proud of that happens, but I'm not ashamed of it because it's not my shame. I didn't do it. I was just a kid. But like I said, I was really scared to tell anybody. And at that time, when that happened, I did have some friends from school. No, nobody near like my house or anything, but I still didn't feel comfortable or safe to even tell them because I didn't know what he was going to do. I became very depressed and semi-suicidal. I made a very poor attempt of suicide a few times, thankfully. Spoiler alert, didn't work. But I was just so unhappy as a child and an adolescent, and food gave me that momentary comfort. My mom and her husband would bowl a lot, like 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. And I used to go because, play video games in the 80s. But I got a little bit older and I realized I could stay home and I could eat. I could sneak things within my room or into the house and just like have, go to town instead of having sneaking boys in my room. I snuck chocolate chip cookies. And that was like really the only feeling of happiness that I actually remember during that time was when I was eating. Although it's fleeting, it still was there. So around 18 years old, I pretty much basically had a nervous breakdown. And I had this very abusive boyfriend. And I was so conditioned to feel about myself that I wasn't good enough, that I was a burden, that I was just lucky to be in someone's life, in someone's house. And this boy came around. He was a beautiful boy that I knew from high school, but I didn't start dating him till after. And I just thought, oh my gosh, like, how could this beautiful guy want me? And so I had this false belief that I would never get anything better, that I would never have anyone that quote unquote loved me as much as him. So I let him treat me however he wanted to. And it was work. He was abusive to me, physically, emotionally, sexually. But I thought that that was my lot in life. That was what I was going to, that was how life was going to be for me. And I got pregnant. And I didn't know what to do. My entire life, I was always told, because of my disability, that I cannot have kids because they would have what I have, but worse. I have a form of muscular dystrophy, which I apologize, I didn't mention at the beginning. I have a very severe form of a muscle disease. It mostly affects my limbs. I can't walk or stand. And it has affected my breathing later in life. That's the worst thing that it's affected. But back then, I was still pretty active. I could still get in and out of my own wheelchair. I could take care of myself physically. I could, do things. So I wanted to have this child. I wanted to keep it. And I was forced to make other decisions. And I did not want to do that, but my mother forced me to do it. I didn't feel like I had any other opportunities. And that is a guilt that has been with me my entire life, which led me more into the food. And the pregnancy gave me a reason to eat, an excuse to eat. And my eating doubled at that point. And even after I was no longer pregnant, the eating like that continued, and the weight gain just started to just balloon, and things just started getting harder for me physically, emotionally. And this boy left me on the morning that I had to go to the hospital. And so I was alone again. And I basically didn't know how to handle these things. And weeks after that, I literally had a nervous breakdown. Instead of giving me help or guiding me through it or loving me like a mother should, she kicked me out. She said she couldn't handle it. So I was ruining her life. And so she kicked me out.
Renee, that's 15 minutes.
Thank you. So it ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. At the time, I thought it was the worst, because this boy came back in my life. Even though I lived like farther away, he still came and saw me now and then when he needed something or wanted something mostly. And then he left me, and I thought that I was going to die. But again, that ended up being the very best thing in the world, because even though I started gaining weight, I started feeling a little bit better about myself, because there wasn't this person abusing me all the time. And I moved in with my dad, and my dad was a little bit more stable at that point, work-wise. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment. I slept on the couch. My father was in the room. My brother at one point came back to live with us. He was laying on the other couch. That's just how we lived for a while. My brother was an alcoholic, a drug addict, still is, but he's recovering. And he started going to AA. And I would go to Eleanor meetings. And that was when I was introduced to the 12 steps. And my sponsor was also in OA. And it was the first exposure I ever had with OA. And I didn't really know anything about eating or anything, or about, recovery for food. And I hadn't ever dieted. But during this time, I went on my first diet. I did what Oprah Winfrey did. I went on OptiFast. And crashed and burned. It did not work. I remember cheating and like hiding and sneaking. Like, who am I sneaking from? I'm the only one that's here. But it just, and it never worked. Diets never worked for me. Then I did Weight Watchers like a million times. And I'm sure like most of us have. It didn't work. My husband did it with me. He lost all the weight. I didn't. So I skipped ahead a little bit. So when I went to the AA meetings, the Al-Anon meetings, I met my husband. I don't normally recommend like going to AA meetings to meet your partner, but he's he is the best. And God, my higher power sent me to him and him to me. And so I finally, started feeling a little bit better about myself. There was a man that actually treated me like I wasn't bothering him. And I didn't know what it was like to be treated until somebody showed me. So, but at this point, the weight and the food had already just really had its grips. Its grips, and it was kind of out of control. So weight gain constantly, diets, and all the time. I probably tried everything for the next 15 years, and nothing worked. And then in that meantime, I did get pregnant. I have a son, he's 30. I have 2 stepdaughters from my first marriage. They're my girls. I don't ever call them step kids. They're my family, my children. And things got better emotionally, a little bit better, but the food was always there. It was always the comfort. It was always the thing. If I was stressed, there was the food. If I was sad, there's the food. If I was happy, we're celebrating with food. It just became a part of my culture, part of my life. And I didn't know how to get away with it and away from it. And I remember so many times it was going to be that, I'm going to start again on Monday or the first of the month or the first of the year or whatever it is. And then making all these plans and menus and diets and, start researching things and, pills and all the stuff. And then like a day or two into it, I feel so overwhelmed. Like I have anxiety attacks. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was supposed to eat. So I threw it out the window. I never successfully lost more than 30 pounds. And my weight crept up to, I'm 5 feet tall, standing, if I could. And I weighed about 300 pounds. And the more weight I gained, the more my disability was affected. And the more my disability was affected, the more sad I was, the more depressed I was, the more I wanted to eat. So, in between all those a lot of years, there was a lot of good things that happened. Like I worked for a long time. I had 4 grandbabies. But fast forward to 2019, I had been to OA a few times because my sponsor in Al-Anon was in OA. And I did try it. I didn't really feel like I fit in because I would go to these meetings. I remember the first meeting I went to, it was like a really crowded room and it was hard to get in there with a wheelchair. But whatever, I did it anyway, sat in the back. And they made everyone go around the room and introduce themselves. And I remember like everyone saying, oh, whatever, my name is compulsive overeater. And I couldn't say it. And then a couple weeks in, I went maybe about 3 or 4 months. I would say it, but I felt like a liar. Like I'm not a compulsive overeater. I just want to lose weight because I didn't understand the gravity of it all until years later. And then I tried OA again. First time I was probably like 95 or something. And then again, 2002. Then I went to 12-step for COEs, the online text-based meetings like in 2016. A few times, even a few years after, but not much, nothing significant. Every time I would go, I just never felt like I could latch on. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't submerge myself in program. I didn't, maybe I think I did get a sponsor twice. I definitely did the 3-step shuffle, step 1, step 2, step 3 out. So I did that multiple times. But the last time I went to OA was 2016 when I did the 12-step COEs. And then when I stopped going, the damage that I did to my body with food from 2016 to 2020 was, undescribable. Having a muscle disease, every muscle in my body is weak, including my diaphragm. And I became so dependent on everybody. I couldn't do things for myself anymore. I couldn't get myself dressed. I couldn't get in on my own wheelchair. I couldn't even go to the bathroom myself. I need help for everything. I still do. I'm sort of like a quadriplegic now. But the difference between now and back then is I wouldn't get out of bed. I would stay in bed for months sometimes. I'm not exaggerating. I got laid off from my job after 10 years, and I went into a deep, dark depression, and the weight really started to back on that because that's all I would do was eat. I was waiting to die. That's all I cared about was I would watch TV and I would lay in bed and eat. And all hours of the night. And my codependent family would just bring me the things because they were afraid I would freak out, the wrath of mom. So they just did it. Well, 2019, I started, I couldn't breathe anymore. My weight had ballooned so severely, 5 feet tall, 300 pounds. I couldn't breathe on my own anymore. I had to use a BiPAP 24 hours a day. If I'd go anywhere in my wheelchair, I had to have these portable batteries. Each one of them had about 3 hours. And when those batteries are dead, I was in trouble. So my life was run by time. So I just decided it was just easier to stay home. I would either stay plugged into the wall, in my bed, on my BiPAP, or if I did get up, I would just, sit in my room, didn't wash my hair, didn't care. I did not care. I was literally waiting to die. And I felt hopeless and helpless. And I felt like I had no purpose at all in this world. And so my oldest daughter was in rehab for drugs and alcohol. And she got out of rehab the weekend before American Thanksgiving. And she was supposed to be doing these online meetings. This was in the middle of COVID. She was supposed to be doing these online meetings, and I got a list of meetings from a friend of mine for NA, and I gave them to her. I said, you need to go, and she's like, yeah, I'm fine, I don't want to go. And there was like days that she didn't go. I remember being so mad at her. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? You just got out of rehab. You're not doing anything you're supposed to do. What in the hell are you doing? And then something told me, like, I know it was God. I heard this clear as day message. Renee, what the hell are you doing? And it's just like, it stopped me in my tracks. And I said, what the hell am I doing? Like, my addiction to food and is bad as her addiction to drugs were, maybe worse. And
Renee.
Thank you. So I went online, and because I already knew about OA, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to see. So I found a meeting. I went to it that day. They went to it the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And it was November 24th, 2020. And I immersed myself in program. I became fully abstinent December 2nd, 2020. That's what I consider my abstinent date. And I wanted to do, I just didn't want to, but I was willing to do absolutely anything I needed to do to save my life, because I decided I didn't want to die anymore. I didn't want to no longer just wait to die. I wanted to live. I have these 4 beautiful, amazing grandchildren that want me to be around. My husband wants me to be around. My family does. And I didn't want to, but I decided I did. So I was willing to do anything. And I have pretty severe social anxiety. It's really hard to say that and for people to believe it because I'm here speaking at a meeting, but this has helped me overcome it. But plus I had a BiPAP on and I looked horrible and I did not want to go on camera. I found a sponsor pretty quickly, maybe 10 days after my abstinence date. And he told me that I needed to start sharing at meetings. I was like, It's like, no, you need to go on camera and you need to share at meetings. She's like, are you willing to do anything to change your life? I'm like, yeah. It's like, then you'll do it. And actually, she didn't take me on as a sponsor yet. She told me that she would help me, but she was full and she had people, she couldn't do it. So one day I was on a meeting and I shared, and she called me afterwards, and I didn't even know she was there. And she's like, I heard you, and I'm going to help you. She's like, I know you have the gift of desperation because you did the hardest thing that you could have done. And she helped me more than I can even say. This woman brought levity and light to my life that I needed. She's literally a comedian. And she taught me how to believe in myself for service. I didn't think I could do anything. She said, go out and give service. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm a stable person. I can't do anything like that. Like, what can I do? She's like, it's on Zoom. You can do it. You're on Zoom. You're fine. So I found something I could do. I started being a newcomer greeter. And I completely threw myself into service. I worked with my sponsor, started doing the steps all the time step work. I did the hardest thing I could ever do was reach out to people and open my heart. My best friend died that year, and before I got abstinent, and my heart was closed to friendships completely at that point. But through God and through the steps, I started slowly opening my heart up. And when I did, my entire life changed. I let people in and I let people know me, and I got to know people. And I started giving service as much as I can, probably a little more than I probably should. But I started with newcomer greeter. Then I started leading meetings and getting involved in a committee, a security committee at OA Footsteps, and OA Footsteps is my home meetings, and then I started serving in a group, and eventually I became a secretary. And I'm not a PTA mom. I'm not the mom that likes to give service and volunteer. I was not that person, but again, I needed to do whatever I needed to do to stay in these rooms. I needed to grow roots. And I knew I had to do service at any and every level to keep me here. So I started serving in a group. I became the secretary. Now I'm the chair of OA Footsteps. And I didn't believe I could do any of these things until somebody told me that I could. I think mentoring people, and not just sponsoring, but mentoring people as well, making people believe in themselves is so important in this program, because a lot of people don't feel like that they can do things. They don't think they can lead meetings. They don't think that they can give service, but I didn't either until someone told me I could. And I believed them. And the more I believed them, the more I started believing in me. And now I get to do that for other people, and I get to help people. And the difference between the 3 prior times I was in OA and to this time is I don't just sit on the outskirts anymore. I immerse myself in this program, and it has changed my life. I have lost 106 pounds in this program. I still have a lot more to go. But the first time in my life, I feel like I'm actually going to be at a healthy weight. What that is not my business. I used to obsess about that, but now I don't, because it's not my business. I'm not.
Renee, that's time.
Thank you. I'm not going to be that have that image that I used to want. But now that image has changed. I don't want just to be this, cute little skinny thing. I just want to be happy and healthy. I want to be here. And I am. And I have so many friends on this program that have saved my life on a daily basis. I have best friends in this program now. I open my heart up to them. I have a better relationship with my higher power. And I get out of bed and I live my life. And my husband doesn't live like a single man anymore. So I go places with him and I do things with him. And I get to go to my grandbabies, band performances and award ceremonies. And I'm not anymore waiting to die. I'm living my life. And that's all I ever really wanted to do, is someone to love me. But now I love me. And that is many things. One of the many blessings I've learned in this program. I am so grateful for this program. I'm so grateful for the steps, for everything that I've learned in this program. And thank you for letting me share. Again, my name is Renee. I'm a compulsive overeater. With that, I'll pass.
Oh, thank you, Renee. That really heartfelt, deep share today. Fantastic. Wow. Okay. So just a reminder for anyone, and especially if you came in late, if you didn't catch the beginning, if this is now a Q&A session, so if you'd like to ask a question, we're doing questions only, we're not doing shares, just a question to Renee, please use the chat function, as you won't be able to ask them audibly. So if you have a question, post it in the chat to Kara and she will ask them on your behalf. So hand over to Kara now. Thanks, Kara.
Oh, thank you, Alan and Renee. Wow, incredible, incredible. Let's start right off, and please, everybody, put a question in. Make it easy for me. Renee, what does a day in the life of your program look like?
That's a good question. So I am not an early person at all. So I want to be, but I'm not. 52 years old, and I still cannot just wake up super early in the morning. So I have to plan things so I make myself get up. So I have a two-way prayer meeting that I am a part of and help give service at every morning at 9 a.m. my time. So I start my day with praying to a higher power, and then I go to that meeting and I do a two-way prayer, which is a huge, amazing tool. And if you haven't done that, I recommend doing a two-way prayer, whether you go to a meeting or not. So I do two-way prayer, and then because I have a pretty hefty service position, I do a lot of just so this and that, so business meetings and things throughout the day. But I do connect with my higher power. I work with sponsees maybe 3 or sometimes 4 times a week. So that would be like a typical day. I would work with a sponsee maybe for an hour or so, doing step work or reading, or just like going over our day, my day. We talk a lot, some of them. And then I do go to meetings throughout the day. I try not to give service at every meeting I go to. So I just want to be at a meeting, but I do probably 2 or 3 meetings a day. And I always end my night with a nightly inventory, and I send my food to my sponsor. I've been doing that my entire abstinence. So that's a typical day. Thanks for asking.
Thank you so much, Renee. All right, let's look at our next one. Can you please explain how you use the tools to support working the steps?
Oh, sure. So, I mean, I might not use every one of them every time, but working the steps for me is like, I learn a lot in meetings, and especially when people are sharing and talking about their experiences, it really helps me with my own step work, because I get, oh yeah, like I can do that, or I get ideas from other people, or yes, I've experienced that. That makes sense. So I love going to meetings. I take a lot of mental notes. Writing. I do, like I said, I do the two-way prayer journal a lot. And I'm not really good at the telephone, to be honest, but this is what I have a core group of people that I do call. But the telephone service is huge for me. Service really has helped me a lot with the steps, because I feel the more it gives me motivation. Service gives me motivation to work my own steps, because the more service I give, the more I'm helping other people, the more I want to help myself and others. So I need a lot of motivation, and that's one of the things that really does it for me.
Thank you, Renee. Our next one. Thanks, Renee, for a beautiful share. My question is, when food has been your best friend and solution to all life's ups and downs, how difficult was it to let go of that? Was there a period of grieving, and how did you get through that?
That's a great question. It was hard. I was so ready, I think, though, by the time I came back to OA, you've heard people say you had to go out there and do a lot of research, which I did multiple times. But when I came back in 2020 in November, I slowly let go of the food and the things that I know I shouldn't be eating. And it was hard. It was almost like my sponsor told me that it was probably a lot of it was a physical withdrawal from sugar and things. But I was like angry and cranky a lot during those couple weeks that I guess I was withdrawing from things. And how I dealt with that, I just went to tons of meetings. I don't work, my kids are not young, so I could go to like 4 and 5 meetings a day, and I would. So I would just really submerge myself into that, because I thought, well, if I'm in a meeting, I'm not going to be eating or thinking about food. But one, I am very, very fortunate, and I know that I'm fortunate, and I don't know if this is going to continue to last, but I'm going to ride this pink cloud while I can, that I have been blessed with the desire not to eat. I don't want to. So, I mean, a lot of praying too got me there. Hope that answered the question.
Thank you, Renee. Next one. Wow, loved your share. What does service both inside and outside of OA mean to you?
Service inside OA, it's my lifeline. I had a little hiccup like this last week, and for a hot second, I thought about maybe just walking away from a particular service position. And the thought of that was like, I couldn't even think about it. It was so upsetting to me to even think about walking away from that, because it means so much to me. I know there are other things that I could be doing, but service in OA to me is like a big chunk of the fellowship. And it's what's kept me here. And I find that I have so many growing opportunities doing service. I don't know. I can't foresee myself ever stopping giving service in some capacity in some way. Outside of OA, I've never really felt like I fit anywhere. I mean, I kind of share a little bit. I was never the room mom or the PTA mom, or I didn't fit in with all the moms and the little things that they do, and even my friends, even church. I don't have a clique, I don't, and I never felt like I could do anything there, or no one. I don't know. It's probably a personal self-esteem thing, but never felt like I fit anywhere. But I do here. I do in OA. And so that's why I throw myself into this. And my family is so supportive. It doesn't hinder my life. It really just enhances it. But I don't really give it service too much outside of OA, to be honest, because I've never found a place to do it. I hope that answered it.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you so much, Renee. What helped you the most improve your conscious contact with God?
Just doing it, setting a schedule. I'm a person of faith, but I also struggle with my faith at the same time. And I'm not like a quote unquote, forgive the term, but I'm not a Jesus take the wheel kind of person where I just throw my hands up and say, you got it. Automatically. I have to like put up a remote, a reminder on my phone, check in. Because it just doesn't, it's not natural for me, which I found weird, because I've always believed in God. I've always been a person of faith. I've gone to church my entire life. But just doing it. meditating. Whenever I do meetings and meditate, I pray. Sometimes I truly listen and meditate, but I pray a lot, and it took me a long time to get there, but I literally have to remind myself. I have like reminders on my phone to check in with God. And I do it at meal times because that's a good reminder. So it's just practice. It's like rock memory sort of thing. Like, and the more I do it, the closer I feel and the more I trust. And because I feel myself sometimes if I get out of that habit or if I'm not feeling good and I just, I want to do it right now. I feel distance. And so I try not to do that. I always try to just keep in constant contact.
Thank you, Renee. Our next question. What does your step 10 look like? What's your step 10 process look like?
You mean like nightly inventory kind of thing? So every night I review my night and I ask myself like certain questions, and I actually texted my sponsor every night. I ask things like, do I have a resentment today? Am I holding a secret or something I need to share with somebody? Did I do something that I'm not really proud of that day? Do I owe an apology? And then I also think of 3 things that I did well today. That's hard. And that's hard for me to do. But I think I am every night I think of 3 things I did well today, and then 3 things I'm grateful for. And then I think about what I think God wants for me today, or what his will for me today or right now or this moment is. And I think about that and I pray about it. I pray before I start the whole thing. And then at that point, I really think and meditate for a minute and really feel like, what does God want me to do? So I do that every day. I do take a moment to listen. So that's basically what it looks like.
Thank you, Renee. Let's see that. When you get out of your spiritual routine, how do you get back into sync with your plan? This person reads spiritual literature every day, and sometimes when they get out of the routine, but I beat myself up and struggle to get back into routine. So how do you get back into your routine?
That's a great question. It does happen occasionally, like I was mentioning before. I have to, do this like basically a regimen, or it does get hard. I plan it into my day. I have like on my phone, I have a calendar that has like every single thing I do all day long. I will literally plan it into my day. Like take 5 minutes to pray, or take 5 minutes to read, whatever, or, meditate. I just will plan that into my day until it starts to feel normal again. Sometimes it takes a while, but if it's telling me, hey, look, it's time, you got to do it, I'll do it. So just reminding myself and then just doing it. When it comes to something like that, I'm a big procrastinator, like from way back. That's a huge character defect of mine. Huge, big procrastinator. But that's the one thing I try never, I don't try to procrastinate, but that's the one thing that I work really hard never to procrastinate with, is when I am struggling there and I get these prompts, or I have like a scheduled time that I'm going to do something, I do it because it's so hard to get back in when I am not sync. So I'm praying a lot too. Sometimes I have to pray for the willingness to be willing. And that helps too.
Thank you, Renee. You mentioned the 1, 2, 3 shuffle. How did you get out of that?
when I came back to OA in 2020, I was willing to do absolutely anything to feel better and to find recovery. And I was willing to do hard things, like go on camera, like speak to people, I'll stay and hang out in a parking lot and talk to people. And then face these things in the 4-step. So it took me a while to get through the 4-step, but I had such a loving, gentle sponsor. She didn't make me feel like I was on some sort of timeline. So I was able to go at my own pace, which was super helpful. And it didn't feel scary because you hear people, oh my gosh, the dreaded 4-step. But I mean, once I started doing it, I'm like, this isn't really terrible. It's actually kind of freeing. And once it was over, it was like, I'm so happy I did that. So I guess it's just a switch of attitude, a shift in thinking was part of that, why I stuck around, because I wanted to live. And I knew that if I didn't thoroughly do the steps, I wasn't going to grow those roots that I needed to grow to stay. Oh, thanks for asking. That's a good question.
Thank you so much, Renee. And lastly, what is your routine before you go to bed at night?
I go to a lot of night meetings. I go to these meetings. They're 8 p.m. my time. We call ourselves the night crew. So they're every night, the same night, different people, mostly the same people, different meeting. But I go to a meeting, and then after the meeting is when I do my praying. Like I review my day. I do my inventory. I track my food. Set my alarms for the next day. Review what I'm supposed to be doing tomorrow morning. And then I make sure when I go to bed, I try never to go to bed with a huge, heavy heart. Sometimes it's inevitable, but if there's something on my mind, I try to either write it out, talk about it with a friend, or my husband usually. But yeah, that's pretty much what I do. Try to go to bed with a clear mind.
Oh, fabulous. Thank you so much, Renee, for your time and your experience, strength, and hope. I am going to turn it back over to Alan.
Thank you, Kara, and thank you again, Renee, for your energy today and just putting your heart on the line for us. We really, really appreciate it. Some great questions, so thank you, everybody. So we'll just open the chat if you'd like to share numbers for outreach, particularly Renee, if you'd like to share your number, if people would like to reach out to you personally, be fantastic. Oh, I've just sent that to you instead of, no, that's fine. I can't multitask, apologies. Okay, so at this meeting, we're not going to have the newcomer breakout session at the end of the meeting. We are going straight into a group conscience today. The link has been posted for our WhatsApp group if you'd like to join us between meetings. And I forgot to ask this at the beginning, but we close this meeting usually by reading the 12 promises of recovery as laid out in the big book, pages 83, if we are painstaking, and ending, if we work for them. I'm not sure if Renee, you're happy to read those, or I can read them if you'd like me to.
Sure, I can read them. Are you screen sharing it?
I believe Carol will screen share it in a second.
Okay.
Put you on the spot there.
All right, the promise is, if we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity, and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thank you. And thank you for showing us how they really do come true a day at a time. So thank you for joining us today. Our meetings do recur on a weekly basis, so we hope to see you again on the same time on the same link. May your higher power bless you and keep you until then. Just stop the recording.